Hey there, it's Mr. Barbera. Feeling a little sleepy this morning. We're going to go ahead and do your Chapter 8 practice test. We went over this in class, but I figured you might like to have the video as well. So let's go ahead and get started. The first problem says 5 angles are drawn on individual pieces of paper and tossed into a paper bag. Of the 5 angles, 3 are acute. Go ahead and underline that. 3 are acute. 1 is obtuse, and 1 is a right angle. If you reach into the bag and pull one angle out at random, what is the probability the angle you draw is a right angle? Explain how you know. So we want to know the probability of getting a right angle. 2 important parts here. One is that there are 5 angles total. And then the other important part is that there is 1 right angle. So we know that probability is the number of items that we want. I guess we'll say items we want. We'll just write it that way. Out of the total number of items. Oops. And in this case, there is 1 right angle. So that's 1. That's the number of items we want. And there are 5 total angles. So 1/5 is going to be the probability. And if I was going to explain it, I'd probably say something like there is 1 right angle out of a total of 5 angles. All right, on to 2. At Union Middle School, approximately 14.6% of the teachers have a portrait of Mr. Feinberg somewhere in their home. The rate of math teachers who have a portrait of Mr. Feinberg is 26% higher than the whole school's average. What is the rate of math teachers who have a portrait of Mr. Feinberg in their home? So we talked about this one a couple times in class. I was really trying to emphasize this one because I think it can be a little difficult to interpret what's being asked. So when I say that the rate of math teachers is 26% higher than the whole school's average, I mean that as a percentage of the original percent. So 26% of this amount. I don't mean just to add it on. If I was asking that, I would say 26 percentage points higher. So we're going to start with 14.6% because that's the whole school. We want to increase. We want to make this number go up by 26%. So I'm going to multiply by a single number that's going to move this number up by 26%. So I start with 1 because 1 represents 100%. I'm going to begin with this number. And I increase it by 0.26, the decimal equivalent of 26%. This gives me a multiplier that's going to give me, this says if I increase this number, 14.6, by 26%, I will get whatever this multiplies out to. We'll go ahead and we'll use our calculator here. So we have 14.6 times 1.26, and we get 18.396. And it is a percent, remember, because we're talking about the percentage of math teachers. We'll just leave right there. And we showed our work there. You could show me a number line if you wanted to show the increase. If you wanted to show something like from 0 to 100%. And then if I want to go up 26%, I end up at 126%. And that's my multiplier right there. Okay, number 3. So again, like we said in class, I set up number 3 in a way to kind of build you towards letter C. Letter C is the most important part. I really want to make sure you can solve that. And we'll do a few more in class this week before the test on Friday. But let's look at number 3A. So I'm going to just get rid of the denominator here. Whenever I see a fraction, I'm going to do fraction busters to practice. So in fraction busters, I multiply by either the denominator or the common denominator. In this case, there's only 1, it's just 3. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 3. And why do I do that? Well, because it fraction busts. It gets rid of the fractions. I'll go ahead and write this as 3 times 4 thirds equals 2 times 3 is just 6. Well, the 3 times 4 thirds, excuse the bell, that's 3 over 1. So I can just cancel out these 3's. They divide and make 1. And I'm left with just the 4. Oh, I forgot my x. So now I'm going to be left with 4x equals 6. And now this is just an equation we know how to solve. I just divide both sides by 4. X equals 6 over 4, which if we divide both of these by 2, we can simplify to 3 over 2. All right, let's see if we can get B and C in before the next bell rings. Letter B. Now I have two denominators. I mean, there's a 1 underneath this 2, but it's kind of irrelevant. These two denominators are 3 and 5, so my common denominator is 15. I'm going to multiply both sides by 15 every single term. And when I do that, I'll have 15 times 4 thirds x plus 15 times 1/5 equals 2 times 15 just gives me 30. Now the 3 divides into the 15 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20x. On this term, 5 divides into 15 3 times. 3 times 1 is just 3. And then I have 30. Go ahead and just solve it like a normal equation. Subtract 3 from both sides. I get 20x equals 27. And divide both sides by 20. X equals, and I'll just leave it as 27 over 20. We actually didn't box this one either, so. All right, letter C. I'm going to go ahead and this is the one that's like what you're going to see on the test. So you have to be able to solve this. We've talked about it several times in class. I've told you this was on the last test. You know this is going to happen. We're going to have to get this down. So 3 denominators that I can see. 3, 5, and 2. I need a common denominator. It's going to be, can't be 15 because 3 and 5 go into 15, but 2 doesn't, so it's got to be 30, right? Multiply both sides by 30. Every single term gets multiplied by 30. So 30 times 4 thirds x plus 30 times 1/5 equals 30 times 1/2 x plus, and then 30 times 2 just gives me 60. I'll just go ahead and do that one right now. Now, 3 goes into 30 10 times. 10 times 4 gives me 40x. 5 goes into 30 6 times. 6 times 1 is 6. On the other side, 2 goes into 30 15 times. Now I just have 15 times 1, it's just 15x plus 60. And here we go, solve it like a normal equation. Subtract 15x from both sides. 40 minus 15 leaves me with 25x plus 6 equals 60. We're going to subtract 6 from both sides. 25x equals 54. Just a second. Okay, so I got interrupted on the other one, but the last thing we did is we subtracted 6 from both sides. That left us with 25x equals 54. Then I'm going to go ahead and just divide both sides by 25. And x equals 54 over 25. All right, let's keep going. Number 4. All right, Mr. Goldman needs to report his hot dog average for the monthly hot dog eating contest newsletter. He wants to represent his hot dog abilities as accurately as possible. Here are his hot dogs eaten for the last 20 attempts. We have these numbers here. We want to give him some information. So what are the mean and media of his data? Now the mean is the average. We're going to add up all the numbers. We're going to divide it by the total number of numbers. I know there are 20 attempts here, so I'm going to divide by 20. But I'm going to add up on the top. I'm going to go 15 plus 16 plus 11 plus 9 plus 18 plus 2 plus 20 plus 22 plus 12 plus 13 plus 15 plus 14 plus 9 plus 16 plus 13 plus 20 plus 18 plus 20 plus 13 plus 14. It's a little long. And that whole thing is going to get divided by 20. So I'm going to come in and use my calculator here. We'll go ahead and type these numbers in. 15 plus 60 plus 11 plus 9 plus 18 plus 2 plus 20 plus 22 plus 12 plus 13, 15, 14, 9, 16, 13, 20, 18, 20, 13, and 14. Oops. There we go. So we got 290. So 290 over 20. When we divide 290 by 20, we get 14.5. So this is the mean right here, is 14.5. It's the average. Now, the median, which is the second part of this question, the mean, we're looking for median, is the middle number, but we need to put the numbers all in order first. So when I do this, I actually like to just cross out the numbers so I know I got them. So 2 is the smallest one. I believe the next largest one should be 9, and we have 1, 2 9s. So 2 and then 2 9s. After 9, we don't have any 10s, but we do have an 11. Do we have any 12s? Yes. 1 12. I think we have a few 13s here, so let's count the 13s. 1 13, 2 13, 3 13s. No, 1 14. Oh, 2 14s. I almost missed both of them. So 2 14s. 15s, there's 1, 2, 2 15s. There's a 16. There's another 16, so 2 16s. And we don't have any 17s. We have 18. We have 2 18s. And we have, how many 20s do we have? 1, 2, 3 20s. And then 22 right there. And I think that's everything. Let's count just to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 numbers. The median is the middle number. So with an even number like 20, it's actually going to be in between two numbers. If we count from the outside, we'll count 10 on both sides. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, I think I missed one here. Hold on, let me cover this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. There's 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the median is going to be right in between these two numbers. We actually do it as the average of those two numbers. So 14 and 15, if we find the average, 15 plus 14 divided by 2, that would give me 29 divided by 2, which is 14.5 again. So which measure of central tendency should we use? This is kind of an interesting one because since they're both the same, it doesn't really matter which you choose. But one thing I want you to keep in mind is that when there is an outlier, like the number 2, which I do think is an outlier in this case, that tends to affect the mean more than it affects the median. So when I have an outlier, you want to pick the median if you're concerned about outliers affecting your mean. In this case, I think you can make an argument that it doesn't really affect it. I'll let you formulate that argument. I'm not going to write it here. But you can kind of decide if you think it should be mentioned or not. It is a pretty low number. If you take it out, you can see how it affects the mean and the median and maybe help your argument with that information. Okay, so moving down to number 5. Mr. Barbera wants to know if he's going to win the upcoming Best and Most Handsomest 7th grade math teacher at Union Middle School award. He decides to take a sample of 30 students to see how he will do. When looking at his roster, he realizes his first period has exactly 30 students and decides this will make a great sample. What do we think? Is this a wise move on Mr. Barbera's part? So, this is not. No. A sample of Mr. B's first period is not representative of all 7th graders at Union Middle School. So, because I'm asking my own students, no students from any other class could possibly get picked. So if you had Mr. Goldman or you had Ms. Shaw, there's no chance they're going to get picked. So this would not be representative. Like we talked in class, they may have a bias, so I might want to elaborate here on they might have a bias because maybe they like me more, they don't like me more just because they're my students. And I would encourage you to develop that argument a little bit more here. But I'm just going to move on from now. As long as the main thing I want you to leave with is knowing that it's not good just to ask one period. You want to have a random sample where everybody has an equal chance of being picked. All right, we're almost there. So number 6. Number 6 got messed up when I made it for the practice test. So like we talked about in class, ignore the question. Just focus on the angles here. So, and even that might be tough because it got all messed up when I went to print it. So we have these 2 angles here. Let's check out this smaller angle first. I look at the protractor. I see that the angle is pointing this side to the left, so I'm going to start with the lower numbers here. So in this case, I'm going to read the outside numbers, 10, 20, 30. When I get up here, it's past 60. I'm going to look at where the line is instead of the dot. Again, I'm sorry, it got all messed up. It looks like it's about 64%. So I'm going to, or 64%, 64 degrees, excuse me. So I'm going to use 64 degrees for this angle. Now, I told you then to find this angle over here. And mostly what I wanted you to think about was whatever angle you got here, the other angle needs to be supplementary to that. So it needs to add up to 180 degrees from this number. I'm going to start on the other side. So I'm going to start on the inside numbers. I'm going to go all the way up. It's past 110. It's past 115. And actually it's going to be 116. And we know that because 64 plus 116 equals 180, which makes these 2 supplementary angles. So mostly what I wanted you to see here is that you need to read the right side of the protractor. So, and when I say right, I mean correct, not the right side. If the angle's pointing this way, meaning one of the rays is going to the left, you would start with the lower numbers on the left. And if one of the rays is pointing to the right, you'd want the lower numbers to be on the right. Also, you can use a little bit of intuition there, like, I know that this angle here is less than 180, so it's going to be 64 and not 116. I know that this angle is bigger than 180. Or, I'm sorry, bigger than 180. Bigger than 90, excuse me. This angle is less than 90. This one is bigger than 90. Okay, moving down to number 7. We're almost done here. Orthy and Ale are each using a protractor and a ruler to draw a triangle with sides of 5 centimeters long and another of 7 centimeters long. And the angle between, that's important that it's between, measures 40 degrees. Now they give us a line, but it asks you to sketch, so you don't really need to draw it to scale. The main thing here is, if I draw a 7 centimeter line, I don't know if that's 7 centimeters, but it's close. Or at least it works for our purposes. And then I draw a 5 centimeter line, but I need the angle in between to be 40 degrees. So I measure this angle first. I don't know if that's 40 degrees, but again, for our purposes, it doesn't need to be exact. That's 40 degrees. I make this a 5 centimeter side. Now, I have to make a triangle out of this. So, the only way I can make a triangle right now with this information is just to connect from here to here. And that makes a triangle. But it also helps us answer question B, which says, will Orthy's triangle look exactly like Ale's? Well, yes, because when we drew the 7 centimeter, the angle in between, and the 5 centimeter line, there was only one line, only one way to connect those 2 lines and make a triangle. So I would say, because with the given 2 sides and angle between them, there is only one way to make a triangle. All right, and that's the next copy of the chapter test. So that's your whole practice test. If you have more questions, please come get them answered. I really want you guys to do great this Friday. All right, see you later.